and welcome to the Savvy Entrepreneur Show. If you're an entrepreneur or a small business person or thinking about becoming one, listen up because this show is for you. I'm Doris Nagel, your host for the next hour. I'm a crazy serial entrepreneur myself. I can't honestly say that most of my businesses have been very successful, but I love helping other entrepreneurs. I've counseled lots of startups and small businesses over the past 30 years, and I'm a former SCORE mentor as well. The show has two goals. First, to share helpful information and resources, but also to inspire, to make your journey as an entrepreneur faster and easier, maybe just a little bit more fun. I don't know about you, but I found being an entrepreneur sometimes lonely, confusing, certainly discouraging at times. So, to help with both those goals, I have guests on the show every week who are willing to share their stories and their advice. And my guest this week is Charlotte Trecartin. She is the founder of something called CharCharms, right, Charlotte?
Yes, that is exactly correct.
CharCharms, which is a water bottle accessory company that has grown really quickly since she started it a couple of years ago. And for those of you who wonder how cool consumer products like slap bracelets and Beanie Babies get started and take off, well, Charlotte's going to share her journey with us and explain exactly how that can happen. So with that introduction, Charlotte, thanks so much for being on the show this week. Welcome to the Savvy Entrepreneur Show.
Hi there, Doris. Thank you so much for having me. It really is a pleasure. I appreciate it.
It is a pleasure to have you. I can't wait to hear about this. And, one of the things I'm really sorry about with audio only for a radio show and podcast is that people don't get to see your very cool water bottle accessories. But, talk a little bit about how you got started with this idea. How did you come up with the idea? And how did you decide maybe, it was really going to be possible to build a company around this?
Yeah, absolutely. So really the whole thing started in the summer of COVID, when COVID first hit in 2020. And I was just sitting at home looking at my water bottle and I realized I wanted to be able to hang something off of it. So a hook on a water bottle popped into my head. And it was one of those things, Doris, that you think is just going to be a thought that goes in one side and out the other. I didn't really think that it was going to be anything until the thought kind of stuck in my head. And I kept thinking about it and pondering it. And then I started researching it. And I started to get really invested. But this was while I was still in college. So it was, that was when COVID hit. It was my sophomore year at University of Illinois down in Urbana-Champaign.
Go Illini, girl.
Yes. ILL.
I.
I love it. Yeah. So honestly, I had this idea in that summer, and then I went into my junior year. And my junior year was the hardest class load I have had. I was a kinesiology major with minors in chemistry and business. So I had no time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had no time for starting a business. And once my junior year started to wrap up, I dived into this water bottle hook idea that I had as quickly as I possibly could. So I bought a 3D printer. I found a mentor. Yeah, I started getting renders made online. I did as much research as I could to just have some sort of minimum viable product, right? That I could see if it's even going to work.
Yeah.
And once I had that, it was one of those things that it's like, okay, I have something that looks good. I have something that makes sense. And when I knew that I knew I could turn it into a business was when I started going to the mall and talking to people about it. So I did a lot of customer surveys, and not customer surveys, but like just surveying,
getting customer feedback. Yeah,
exactly. Potential customer feedback. Exactly. And I had my little iPad there, went down to the mall over in Schaumburg, Illinois, and just interviewed as many people as I could before I got kicked out. And really, really the response that I got was overwhelmingly positive. People really liked the idea. They liked how it looked. And then my
Well, I have to stop you right there and just ask a clarifying question. So describe for people the water bottle charms that you offer and talk about how you decided. I mean, the charms could be almost anything. They could be like things from a charm bracelet, or they could be fashion statements, or they could be, uh, baby Yodas if you had the licensing right. So how did you even decide like what people might like?
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of back up, my water bottle accessory business is a stick on hook that can stick onto any water bottle. It's hand wash safe, dishwasher safe, and then you can hang little charms off of it. So you are 100% right. Those charms can be anything. And my initial thought was, okay, well, if someone's going to stick something onto their water bottle, they probably wanted to add some functionality to their lives. This isn't only about just adding cuteness. So I started thinking about functional accessories like chapstick holders, and
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
AirPod cases. And then I started thinking about what's kind of trending online and what you see on women's purses and keychains. It's, pom poms or
Yeah,
rubber key.
little furry puff balls. My daughter has them on her purse.
Yeah, exactly. Or rubber keychains that identify who you are, right? So if you love yoga, maybe you have like a little yoga namaste charm. Maybe
Yeah.
if you are a gym person, maybe you have a little dumbbell. So a lot of identifying charms and then just like really cute accessories. So we are at almost over 250 accessories on our website right now.
Oh my goodness. So
Yeah.
are most of your buyers women or not necessarily?
Right now, yes, most of our buyers are women. However, we're starting to see more and more men put our basic hooks on their water bottles to hang their keys or their AirPods. So it's not just about the cuteness of it, it's
Well,
about the
yeah, I mean,
functionality of
guys like sports stuff,
it.
So, and I suppose then you start to get into some of the licensing issues, which
Right.
I don't want to digress there now, but probably it's worth chatting about later on. But,
Mhm.
even something like a basketball or a football or,
Yep.
soccer shoes or something.
Exactly. Yes. We have a football bundle on our website right now. It's like a little football and some Chicago Bears colors in the actual bundle. So it's really cute. We have it for all sorts of stuff like that.
Wow, cool. All right. Well, so I interrupted you and made you take a little detour here on your story, but
Sure.
so here you are at the Schaumburg Mall and you're stopping people and showing them this rendering on your iPad.
Mhm.
How did you go from there?
Yeah. So once I had that, I even was interviewing people asking them what they would want to hang on it. So to answer your previous
Ah.
question, I would give them, 20 options. Okay, just check what you would be interested in. Zodiac signs, hand sanitizer holder, whatever it was. And they would just check everything that they liked. And there was a clear trend of charms that people were most interested in.
Oh,
So
interesting.
once we had that, I started to think about how I wanted to bring this to market and how I was going to create it. And coincidentally, I had a friend from U of I who was really into resin. The resin that you pour into a mold and you
Oh
put
yeah.
glitter in it. So she was
Yeah.
really doing resin stuff, and I thought, you know what, maybe she can help me, make a mold and figure out a way to make these hooks. So we were able to figure it out. She really held my hand through the way because I knew nothing about resin or resin art at all. I'm not a very like crafty person,
Well,
but I
you
really
weren't an engineering major, so
no,
I kind of thought, oh, well, maybe she's a fashion designer or an engineering major, but none of the above.
no, not at all. Really, what it was a business mind seeing a business opportunity. That's really what it all is.
It is, and yet what I find really fascinating about your story, Charlotte, is that how many of us have been sitting around having a glass of wine or over dinner going, I wish there was a X, or wouldn't it be cool, I could start a company doing that and make $1 million, or how did this person who made, slap bracelets, how did they come up with that idea? And look how much money they make because everybody's wearing them at the time. But most of us never do anything with it. It's just this light bulb, and maybe it's a cool idea, maybe it's a dumb idea, but that's pretty much the end of the story for most of us, but not for you.
No, and I think about that all the time. CharCharms isn't the only idea that I've had in the past 2 years. Ideas come to me all the time, and they get written down. Like, they are stored for my next business.
Oh
Because
boy.
you can turn anything.
Watch out, world. Here she comes.
I know, but when someone has an idea, I talk to them and I'm like, this can be something. Like, go start taking action. It's not that hard. You just have to take a few simple steps. You just have to start.
Yeah, well, but a lot of people can't. I was just working on a blog post about the number of people, particularly when I was a SCORE mentor. SCORE, for those listeners who don't know, is a volunteer arm of the Small Business Administration, and it's all free. The challenge is, though, that a lot of people who come to SCORE, because a lot of people are not super experts in things that are the volunteers. It's a lot of people who've got an idea or are looking to find an idea. They just want to be an entrepreneur, and they want somebody to help them come up with an idea for a business, which always made me laugh. But anyway, but I never cease to be amazed at the number of people who are like, well, I always wanted to have a restaurant or a daycare center, or, take my grandma's recipe and make something with it. But they can't get off the dime. They just can't stop noodling. Right. And again, that's not you.
No, not in the initial stages. And the biggest thing that I had to really understand was, I'm not going to have it all figured out, but as long as I have my next step, I can take that step. I don't need to know 10 steps into the future. I just need to know what to do next. And that's really all it takes, one step at a time.
Very, very interesting. So while you were down at U of I, were there resources down there that you found helpful, or mostly just from your circle of friends?
I wish. I actually, once COVID hit, I did not go back to campus. However,
right, I forgot about that.
There are students listening to this, though every single university has amazing resources. And as a college student, you can get discounts from incubator centers and work with like startup communities. And just because you're a student, you can have a lot of really nice perks. But yeah, U of I, they have an amazing entrepreneurship club. They have a whole center for it. But unfortunately, I was up here. So really all I had was just a few emails back and forth. And otherwise it was completely me doing this alone.
All the more remarkable, Charlotte. Thank you. Remarkable. So, all right. So you had a friend who was into resin. Mm-hmm. So are all the charms? Your puffballs aren't resin. So no. How did you figure out how to do all the manufacturing and sourcing of all this?
Yeah, so our hooks are the only thing that is made of resin. They won't be made of resin for long. Those will soon be injection molded. Everything else that we make or that we sell is, we get it from overseas. So we source it, we bring it here, and then we put it together so it looks nice and looks pretty. So we have people that do that. Our beads are the one thing that are handmade, because finding really cute, good quality bead charms are a little bit more difficult. And those are pretty popular. So we're going to continue to hand make those. And that's just making sure that we source all of our beads at a low cost and making sure I can find the people that will do it efficiently and quickly.
Wow. So where do you assemble all this? Is it in your family garage, or did you end up renting a space, or what?
Yeah, so I am in my parents' basement. So I just graduated this past May, and my dad is being kind enough to let me take over the entire basement with a manufacturing area and a fulfillment and my office. Yeah, it really is like one of those true startup stories where it starts in the basement, but it's not.
I love it. And I was going to ask how you found funding, but essentially part of your operation is subsidized a little bit, at least by your folks who are letting you be in the basement.
Yes, exactly. And I'm very thankful for that, of course. But I'm becoming an adult. I have bills to pay. I have all of that. I'm just lucky to have a roof over my head and not huge overhead costs for the actual business itself, which is really nice.
Yeah, so so making the product, coming up with the idea, then figuring out how to actually make it is
Mhm.
a big step. But then you have to figure out how to sell it. So how did you tackle that set of challenges?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it took us 6 months to start getting some consistent sales. So we launched September of 2021. So right when my senior year was starting, I launched the website and we really just started marketing it on Instagram. And we
Oh.
would get one sale. I'd get so excited. I'd pack it immediately and send it out. We would get another sale like 3 weeks later. I would get so excited. Every single sale was like everything to me. And they weren't very consistent, but when they came in, I was so pumped about it. And it was my senior year. So I had school, I was working a full-time job. CharCharms was just something that I was growing. And then, it would come where one month we'd have 4 sales. Then the next month we'd have 8 sales. Then we'd have 10 sales, or we'd have 2 sales in a day. And I would just see this little growth over time, right? And then I realized that I needed to kick up the marketing a little bit. Instagram was not doing it. I did not want to pay for ads. So
Well,
I
and
decided.
also your product is kind of one of those things that probably don't fully appreciate until you see it and touch it.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was hard with COVID. It wasn't like you could hand out free samples or anything, or
Right.
show people for a long time because we just couldn't. There wasn't much consumer traffic to be tapped into.
Exactly. Yeah. So TikTok was my best bet. So I started on TikTok in January and it went terribly for 3 months. And then in July, I got a TikTok coach who basically just helps me with trends and audios. And that helped me grow 10x my business. So we grew exponentially in the third quarter of this past year just because.
All right. So, what kind of tips based on this, without giving away, your coach's, all of your coach's secret sauce? What did you learn about what works on TikTok?
TikTok is constantly evolving. So the people who think that they can just batch their content like way ahead of time, it's not necessarily the way to do it. It's really about understanding what's trending on a daily basis because trends change all the time, songs change all the time. So if you can't be on TikTok daily, you should find someone who can be on TikTok daily. So that's the first
Oh.
thing. Yeah. And then the second thing is providing some sort of value to your audience, whether it's educational, whether it's purely entertainment, whether it's just aesthetic content, but making sure that your audience is following you for the right reason. And that's something that, CharCharms is evolving all the time with. Okay, why do we want our customers following us? Why are people following us? What kind of content should we be putting out there? So it's always changing. It doesn't have to be the same thing from the beginning as it is 1 year later, but what you put out there is definitely it's going to attract different types of viewers.
So, what kind of viewers did you start angling for? I mean, a lot of us are probably sitting here thinking, well, I'm not really all that funny, so I don't know if I try to entertain, it might not go so.
I feel the same way. I don't consider myself a funny person in any way. So I knew that that was not going to be the way that I go. But we started doing really well on TikTok by doing a lot of in-person interviews. So I would have a girl come with
Oh.
me and we'd go to the mall, not the same mall that I got kicked out of, a different mall.
Well, yeah, I mean, you gotta. There's several in the Chicago area, so
Yeah.
it'll take time for you to get kicked out of all of them.
Yeah, that's true. We would go down to the mall and I would just stop people and ask them to answer a couple questions about CharCharms. And then I'd give away free hooks or free charms. And
Ah.
those started doing really well. That was probably what kicked us off and got us our first 20,000 followers. those types of videos.
Wow. No wonder you're comfortable doing video when you suggested you do video, because you do it all the time.
Yes, I am always on camera. I'm very comfortable with it. We actually have a YouTube channel that we just launched also for CharCharms, and I'm the
Oh,
one.
good for you.
Yeah, so it's been fun, but that type of content isn't going to take us to 100,000 followers. So
Right.
we're evolving, we're changing, we're figuring out, okay, what do we have to do to continue to grow at such a rapid pace?
Well, and also it's not just about followers. I mean, unless the followers are people who are buyers, it's sort of, I've always found it curious when people are like, oh, look at all of our Facebook followers, and I'm like, yeah, but are they buying? You know, it's great if they follow. So how do you know whether they convert or not?
Yeah, well, every time we have a viral video, our sales spike. So it
Ah,
is very clear. Our product is one of those products that is a purchase that you're going to make really quickly. So it's
yeah.
you see it, you like it, you buy it, and
Yep.
then delivered in your door in a week. We
Oh,
try to make it really simple, and it could be simpler. Products that are or pages that are one page or one product pages do this amazingly. It takes them right to a landing page where you can purchase right then and there. It's a
ah,
little bit more difficult because we have so many options. So people
yeah,
need to scroll a little bit.
right.
So that's always evolving, also figuring out how to make that purchasing process easier for our consumers. But yeah, I mean, it's been really clear when we have a viral video that our purchases.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
And what about building your e-commerce platform? Was that pretty easy? I mean, it seems like if you have a few sales here and there, it's one thing, but if you may need to have some different features or robustness or something built in if you start getting 1,000 orders a day, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. When I talk to other founders, that's their first concern is the platform. But for me, it was the last concern on my mind. Shopify does a great job. Shopify hosts some huge companies like Glossier and some other major companies. So Shopify has everything that a company needs to scale and grow. So once I launched on Shopify, that was my first choice that I wanted. And they have a lot of apps and plugins that you can use that allows for a lot of growth. So for anyone out there, Shopify is the place to be, in my opinion.
It's interesting you say that. I would encourage listeners too to go back and listen to some other episodes, because that is a consistent recommendation among companies that sell via e-commerce that have been on my show. To a person, they say, go with Shopify. There really is no other option that
Mhm.
makes any sense in their view anyway. Not mine, but theirs. So it's interesting to hear you say exactly the same thing.
Yep, definitely. It just leaves any questions completely out of it. Like you don't need to question things. Everything is there for you. No coding really necessary unless you want to get a coder and add some extra features.
Well, I'm curious about the cash flow piece of this, at least early on. So you needed to have an inventory of a bunch of different kinds of charms before you had buying customers, really. How did you finesse that?
Yeah, so I did door-to-door sales the second summer of COVID, and I saved up about 20 grand, which was a lot
Wow.
for one summer. Yeah. That was a great job. I was top saleswoman all summer, but that was the money that I used for CharCharms when it launched. So when
Oh,
we got
and you weren't doing door-to-door sales selling your charms. You were
no,
a door-to-door salesperson during
yeah.
COVID, and you were a top salesperson?
It did. People were happy to see me. I guess I'm just like a happy face at the door.
I don't know what you majored in, but it's obvious you are a natural salesperson. That's for sure.
I don't know. I was selling coupon books, so I wasn't like one of those pest control people or solar people. Those are the worst ones. But I was a fun
They're
sort of.
pesky. They're pests is what they are.
They are exactly. So I was not like one of those. I would make jokes, and people enjoyed me, so it was fun. I did it for 3 months, so it was a great summer job to learn and make a lot of money, and then I put that money towards my business. So I had some sort of capital going into it to have charms and to get a patent and to buy a 3D printer and pay people on Fiverr to make my renders. So that was nice that I had that.
Wow. So, what does a 3D printer even cost?
Oh, it's not even that much. It's like $300.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. You'd think that it's like $1,000.
Oh, I thought it was more than that.
No, you can get some really user-friendly ones for a couple $100. And I bought mine used, I bought mine new. You can probably buy them used for $150, $200 now. It's really
And
cheap.
so, is that cutting into all the stuff that you need to buy from overseas? You just print it out and make it yourself?
No, so the 3D printer was just for our initial prototype. Before I started making our products out of resin, I really needed to figure out how this would even look.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that was for our initial prototype because I could learn how to do CAD design software and kind of play around with it, play around with the shape and the size of it. So that's the flexibility that having a 3D printer gave.
Oh, and so when you source from overseas, do you look at what they already are buying and go, that fits nicely with or what they already make, and you say, oh, I like your little music charms that you have, I want to buy those? Or do you go to manufacturers and say, I need it to look like this and this, can you make it for me?
No, I'm buying what they already have, which makes the whole process very safe, right? I don't have to go through like a bunch of iterations of what they think I want. I've
Right.
had a lot of issues with that. I've also heard people do or have, really great experience overseas, but I'm lucky that the products I can buy, they're already making in mass quantities. I can buy 1,000, I can buy a couple hundred and get it sent over here very cheaply and then sell them on my website as water bottle charms.
Wow. Well, talk about how your business has grown since those humble days of getting kicked out of Woodfield Mall in Schaumburg, Illinois.
Yeah, so we've grown a lot since the beginning of the summer. That was pretty much the majority of our growth, probably since May, June, July to the end of October. We have really, really just 10x'd our growth. And I do it full time. So when I graduated, I had to make that decision. Okay, am I going to go get a normal corporate job, which I know I would do great in a corporate setting, or do I pursue this dream, right? And build something here that I know I can build into being huge. And I decided to continue with CharCharms. I knew I had some flexibility, post graduation to still live at home for a year or 2 years while I can build this in the basement and then take over the garage.
Well,
and then take over the rest of the house too.
The corporate job is always going to be there for you,
Yes.
right? So,
Exactly.
how often do you get an idea that is viable and the opportunity really with very low startup costs to be able to see what you can do?
Not very often.
Right. What do you see as the next steps for your business? Do you see product extensions? Do you see more options? Do you see getting your product sold through different kinds of outlets? Talk about that.
There's a lot of growth for CharCharms in the near future for sure. So CharCharms has evolved from a water bottle accessory company to now just an accessory company. So
Oh, really?
only focused on water bottles now. We have found our customers love putting these hooks on their phones, on their car dashboards, on their vanity mirrors.
Oh, wow.
So we've seen that people want to use these for more than just their water bottles. Of course, water bottles are always going to be, right? That's where we started. We love the water bottle accessory industry and the fact that we created it. But being able to accessorize so much more just gives a lot more growth to CharCharms, being able to add charms anywhere.
Yeah.
So thinking of that, I think a lot in terms of how can we grow as a hook company that also sells all the charms and accessories. So of course, we're looking at corporate partners. I would love to see us in stores like Claire's. I'd love to see us in a Walgreens. I would love to see our water bottle bundles in Hallmark because they're such great gifts for people. I think there's a lot of correlation between the CharCharms hook and the Command hook. And we do a lot of
Oh,
TikTok videos.
interesting.
Yeah, comparing the two of those. And people are very vocal on TikTok about what they like and what they don't like. And we've heard a lot of people say how they think our hook is so much cuter or our hook sticks a little bit better. Command hook has been around for a long time. I don't see why CharCharms couldn't be on the shelf right next to them in the future.
How interesting. Well, one of the challenges I see for your business, and you're a smart cookie, and I'm sure you thought about it too, but consumer, first of all, consumer tastes are sometimes very fickle and they change quickly. I mean, you even alluded to trying to market on TikTok and how fast things change.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece is that when something becomes successful, usually someone comes along trying to do knockoff stuff. So talk about how you've prepared for both of those kind of uh, potential threats to your business.
Totally. This is all about building a brand. So CharCharms isn't just, a water bottle accessory company or a hook company. It's CharCharms. And having people identify more with the name and loving the company and loving our mission behind it and liking the founder, me. So making sure that I have a good impression on people so they follow the brand for me. That's all been a whole part of building our brand. The brand story is everything to connecting to our customers. So that's the first part. And I know, eventually not everyone is going to know that I'm the founder of CharCharms, but in that sense, then it's just going to be about being first to market. And I understand that, yes, there are always knockoffs, right? So we're working on Claire's. But to answer your question about consumer tastes changing, that's also something that I'm completely prepared for. But the water bottle trend is only going upwards. So people are carrying more and more water bottles with them. They want to personalize them. Everyone is going to have a hydro flask, right, in the next couple of years. So how do you differentiate yourself? How do you make your water bottle different? Well, you add some CharCharms. Okay. Command hooks have been around for 25 years. They've been the same thing for 25 years, white and oval shaped.
Yep.
There has to be some sort of new company to come in and do something different.
Yeah.
So if they've been able to do that for 25 years, I think CharCharms could come in and be the new hook company that's around for 50 years or more than that.
Well, why not? So, how difficult has it been to get into some of these chain stores? What advice do you have for entrepreneurs who maybe are thinking about a product that might be sold through those kind of outlets? Is that easy finding the decision maker? Is it mostly local decisions, or do you have to go through a whole bunch of corporate hoops to figure out and break through all the barriers?
I'll be honest, it's been quite difficult for me, and I'm not in any major retail chains yet. I'm definitely making as much progress as I can, and it is very difficult. So unless you have a friend who is a buyer for one of those stores, but the odds of that, right, are really slim. So I've been able to meet mentors who have been in that buying process. So talking to people who've already done it, it's a great way to learn. LinkedIn has been my best friend. So messaging buyers and talking to them and trying to have conversations, finding emails, having a pitch deck ready. That's all part of it. So that's really what I've been working on. And I have, our main goal right now is to get into Claire's stores. So to do that, I'm getting familiar with all the Claire's stores. I'm going to all the Claire's that it's near me, talking to their store managers, talking to their employees, seeing how they think CharCharms could fit in. And then when I am able to talk to buyers, right, I have that background feedback. Like, oh yeah, I talked to, Emily over in Deer Park and she said she thought this, and just kind of having that sort of relationship with the other Claire stores, I think that'll help. So that's the advice that I would give to someone who wants to get into a big box store is talk to as many people as you can. Find people who have been in the process of selling to major retail chains and retail stores and just take all the steps that you can. Because at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. If I message 100 LinkedIn buyers, odds are one of them will respond to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. So, I'm amazed too, Charlotte, at how much of this you've figured out on your own, given that this all started during COVID when it was very difficult to do
Mhm.
a lot of the kinds of preparation and planning and feedback and all the pieces that you need to do at the beginning. If you had, looking back, an easy button, what would that look like? What do you wish existed that would have made your life a lot easier?
Oh man. Probably someone being able to tell me how to do all my TikToks. TikTok has been the biggest headache of the entire, even though it has given us the most growth. If I had an easy button, it would say, okay, viral TikTok. And I could just push that button and it would create a viral TikTok for us. So
Wow.
it's worth its weight in gold having viral TikToks, especially for brands nowadays. If any sort of brand that you have, whatever, if it's a business, a startup, a local business, you have to be on TikTok. And the ability to go viral, that is a skill. That is a skill set. And it's hard to do that if you
Oh
don't know how
yeah.
the TikTok algorithm works.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
Interesting. So what's been the best part so far about having your own business?
Oh my gosh, Doris, there have been so many great parts. There's been a lot. I always look for the good in everything. And it's funny when I talk to my mentor, he's like, Charlotte, I feel like I've only seen you been bummed like 20 minutes of the past year that we've talked to him. And it's because I look for the good in everything. And there's been a lot of great parts. Probably, oh man, probably when we had our first really big month in July. It was record sales. I was shipping out orders in the dozens every single day. Like
Wow.
his orders were flowing in all the time. It was, my phone was just buzzing. It was amazing. It was a great month. So when we had that for the first time ever, that was a huge high, but it was also the most stressful that I've
Oh,
ever.
I'm imagining that because you're still at a point where you don't know for sure consistently how to pull in sales. I mean,
Yeah.
you're growing, but how do you need 10 people helping you do this, or 5 or 15 or what,
It was really hard. And then we started selling out and I wasn't really keeping track of our inventory that well. So that was a huge mistake on my part. But then we would sell out and then I'd have to buy stuff and it wouldn't come in for a week. And it was crazy hectic, but we made it through. And looking back on it, it's like, okay, lesson learned, but it was a great time.
Well, so what lessons did you learn from that? How do you prevent that from happening again?
Counting all of my inventory, not being lazy in that aspect of the business.
Uh,
I like to think of myself as I'm like the visionary of the business, right? I sell the business. I can pitch the business to people and I'm great at the marketing aspect of it. But when it comes to like the nitty gritty stuff, counting our inventory, packing the orders on time, doing the finances, like that's not my favorite part. I don't love to do that. And there's people who do like to do that.
yes.
So the
Yes.
lesson that I've learned is implementing the right people to do those things to help me. And if they're not available, then I just have to suck it up and get it done early. All those hard tasks that I don't really enjoy doing, I get them done first thing in the morning. So I do the
Ah.
hardest things first. As soon as I wake up, 6 a.m., okay, let me count my inventory, let me do my finances and just like knock them out for the day. So that was one of the biggest things that I really learned from that first really big month that we have was I really need to be on top of what we had and understanding the kind of flow of products, how many I should order, not ordering when we were like almost out of stock, and just managing our cash flow a little bit better. That was one of the first, bigger lessons that I really had to learn.
Well, now that you've had some experience actually running the business and kind of the different levers that you need to pull and push, what what's your vision for what CharCharms will look like 3 years from now if you're successful?
Yeah, absolutely. I fully believe CharCharms, like I mentioned before, it will be on shelves in Targets and Walgreens and at Hallmark and at Claire's, and I think in different aspects. So CharCharms has the functionality with the hooks, right? So they could be next to the command hooks as a cute version for young girls and teenagers, or just people who want more colorful options. I see it there. I see it in Claire's as a more of an accessory product to add cuteness to your water bottle. I absolutely could see partnerships with the NFL and the Big Ten and having game day bundles and bundles for your favorite sports teams. I could see so many future partnerships. But like I said, little baby steps first. So focusing on one thing at a time. But I absolutely do see a lot of growth for CharCharms. And this isn't just a small business. This is a startup. And there's definitely a need for this in the market.
Yeah. Wow. Well, good for you. What's your best guess on where you think this company is ultimately headed? I mean, you referenced other business ideas? Do you think it'll become part of Charlotte's mini, holding company with different ideas? Or is this a business that you think could be packaged and sold to some bigger company? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think if everything went perfectly, right? A lot of things don't, but if everything did go perfectly, I could absolutely see us getting acquired by another company. And I would love to see that happen. CharCharms for me is my first business that I'm going to start and grow as big as I can grow it. And then it'll get acquired whenever it's ready. So there's no timeline for me for that. If it takes 5 years, if it takes 10 years, I will grow CharCharms to the point that it can be really sustainable and it is a brand in the marketplace that people can identify. And then when it makes sense, it'll be sold. But I don't have like a goal for, by the time I'm 30, nothing like that.
No, I was just curious. I mean, one of the pieces of advice I always give to my entrepreneur clients is begin with the end in mind, because a lot of the decisions you make on who to hire and when to hire and how to position things really kind of depends on where you think it's headed. And some people, honestly, they never want to let go of it. They just have so much fun growing their business and interacting with customers that they never want to let go of it. And that's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great piece of advice, Doris. I really do love that. And maybe I should think about that more with my business, keeping the end in mind more. But when I think about my business, I think about the small steps that I need to take to grow it. It's hard for me to look at those 5-year goals and see those on the horizon. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on there. So I like to keep my goals really near and dear to my heart, because I know they're like right there, right? The next couple months that I know I can achieve. But thinking big picture is always really important too.
Well, there's nobody else that can really do that except you as the founder and the idea person. So you referenced other business ideas. What else would you like to do besides grow this business?
I think CharCharms has a lot of potentials for other iterations. I do think that...
Yeah, you don't want to give away any trade secrets.
I do not. No, I don't.
Don't do that. But I was just curious whether you were, thinking about writing a book or, founding more businesses or all kinds of things that someone with your talents and energy and enthusiasm could do.
Yeah, I don't think a book is in my near future. Maybe when I'm around 60. I will write my book. I do have plans to write a book eventually, but way down the line. I think it'd be really cool to get into some sort of warehousing, real estate. I think the marijuana industry is really cool. I do think that the water bottle space is great for CharCharms and the accessories, but there's so many big players in it. So I don't plan to stay in water bottle accessories in a future business. I think there's really cool consumer package startup company or consumer good companies that I would love to work with. So even if it's not working in my own startup, working in other startups, I've kind of got that bug now, and it's hard. It's going to be hard to shake that and join like a real corporation, right? Where you have all those so many levels to it, right?
What's really funny is a woman that I interviewed a couple of weeks ago basically said, well, I have to make a go of this. She goes, I'm completely unemployable at this point.
Oh my
I
gosh,
thought
that's
that
too
was a
funny.
pretty funny perspective on things.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, it's like I can create my business and I can join a startup.
Right. Well, being in part of a startup is a lot of fun too. So, looking back in your journey, I know you said earlier you felt like you've learned a lot since starting this business. Is there anything you would have done differently, or what advice have you what advice would you give to other, especially women entrepreneurs who maybe are just getting started?
I probably would have done a couple things differently. I would have started connecting with other entrepreneurs and doing more networking way earlier in my journey. And yes, granted, it was COVID. There wasn't a lot of networking events going on. And that's how I met my first mentor through the SBDC, through an online networking event. But even when things started to open up, I probably should have gone to more networking events, which is what I'm doing now. And it's really, really taken CharCharms to the next level in terms of just thinking bigger. So I would recommend to young entrepreneurs is to go to any event that you could possibly find, any networking event that you can find. Just go and talk to people and talk about your idea and what you want to do and put that energy out there. The other biggest thing that I would always recommend to someone is to find a mentor. So you are, Doris, you're a SCORE mentor. I found a mentor from SCORE also. Just recently, I found a new mentor, but I have multiple mentors for different things. I have mentors that I talk to weekly. I have mentors that I talk to just about my retail stuff. Having mentors just provides so much. It's a teacher. And when you're out of school, having someone to guide you and to ask you the right questions and that you come back with your progress. It's been really helpful for me. And I actually just did a YouTube video last week on the CharCharms YouTube channel about mentors and everything that you should know about working with the mentor. So if you want to hear my perspective on it in a longer YouTube video, just go check out our YouTube video.
I think that's great advice. I will go do that. And you know what? When I create the podcast version of this, I would like to link that because that sounds like it would be great. Would be great for people to, just hear one person's story and the suggestions that come out of it. Are there any mentoring or networking groups that you have found in particular to be helpful resources?
If you're in Illinois, the SBDC has a lot of really helpful mentors. That's where I found my first mentor. That's where I found my current mentor. If you want to launch a company, if you can find mentors through a local incubator, that's a great place. If you find a startup facility that helps startups, usually they have mentors. If you're part of a college, they will usually have mentors at their startup center or their incubator center. So there's a lot of resources like that just really around you. And if I know Doris mentions that she's a SCORE mentor. SCORE is all over the country and you don't have to be close by, but you could just Google them. And it was the easiest process for me to find someone on SCORE that I could talk to and trust. So those are really the best resources that I would recommend. And if you're younger than that and you're in high school, man, you can go to your teacher and they can be your mentor. You can go to someone that you trust or, an older friend. You can really have anyone as a mentor.
Well, even a lot of high schools anymore, at least the bigger ones in metropolitan areas, may even have an entrepreneurs club or, other programs, competitions, and things like that to support it.
Yeah.
And depending on what you're interested in, there are clubs out there. One of my nephews was very into robotics and he's working for a startup, not a company himself, although it wouldn't surprise me at some point if he decides to found his own company. But he got very involved in some sort of local club with other kids who really loved robotics. So, I think the message that we're saying is the same. There's a lot of potential helpful resources out there, but you do sometimes have to be really persistent And sometimes the first couple you go to may not just be the right fit for you, but keep pushing because today there's a lot of resources out there. You just need to find the right ones for you.
Absolutely. And I actually am starting an entrepreneurs club in the Chicago suburbs. So anyone who is looking for a club to join with other young people that are starting businesses or already have businesses, feel free to reach out because I am happy to have anyone new faces just pop in and see what it's like.
Well, cool. Well, that leads me to my last question for you, Charlotte. How should people reach you or learn more about your company and find it to maybe look at the products and order them? Or now that you mentioned it's your Entrepreneurs Club, how would they find out more information about that?
Yes. So you can find CharCharms at charcharms.com. If you want to contact us, there is a contact us button on the website that will send us an email directly to our support email. And we check those daily. And if you want to find out more about the Entrepreneurs Club, just keep that in the support email directly from our CharCharms website, because I'll be posting on that probably in like a blog on the CharCharms website, something like that, or on our Instagram. So you'll just have to stay in touch and through email, and we'll keep everyone updated.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining me today and talking about your story, Charlotte. You're just an inspiration, and what an ever-ready bunny you are. I'm inspired and fired up and enthused just, spending the hour chatting with you. So thanks for joining and sharing with my audience.
Of course. Thank you so much, Doris. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody, for listening, and thanks especially to my guest today, again, Charlotte Trecartin, who is the founder of the CharCharms. You can find more helpful information and resources on my new radio show focused website, thesavvyentrepreneur.org. You'll see increasingly a library of blogs and tools and podcasts and other free resources for entrepreneurs and small business people. Because this show is for you, my door is always open for comments, questions, suggestions, or just shoot the breeze. You can email me at dnagel, N-A-G-E-L, at thesavvyentrepreneur.org, and I promise you'll always get a response back from me. Now, be sure to check out my YouTube channel, The Savvy Entrepreneur Radio Show. You'll also find there lots of past episodes of the show that you can download. Subscribe to the channel so you'll be sure to be notified of new episodes as they're posted. Like them and comment on them. Your fellow entrepreneurs will appreciate it. Be sure to join me again next week at Saturday at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. But until then, I'm Doris Nagel, wishing you happy entrepreneuring.